Janet Munro was a cute and captivating actress. John Whitcomb of Cosmopolitan wrote upon seeing the actress on the set of Swiss Family Robinson, "Janet is a small bundle of British charm with close-cropped auburn hair and green, triangular, sequin-like eyes." A film historian, Loretta Barnard, described her as sprightly, freckle-faced. Let Janet tell us about herself.
So let me start at the beginning. I came from the provinces, or the sticks. I was born in Blackpool, a seaside resort where my dad, Alex Munro, was performing in a vaudeville act. I never had a real home. I grew up in a stage trunk, learned to live out of cramped suitcases with my traveling parents, and during my teens, I took up acting too. It was the only life I knew.
Janet was born in 1934. Her father, christened Alex Horsborough, was a veteran music hall entertainer. In 1925, he created an acrobatic act with his brother Archie and sister June. The act went by the name the Horsburgh Brothers and Agnes. The trio achieved success as part of Florrie Ford's music hall company, which also featured the hugely popular comedy team of Flanagan and Allen. Janet's mother, Phyllis, had difficulty with her pregnancy. She never fully recovered her strength and had a hard time looking after Janet. It became evident when Janet was 2 that her mother was no longer able to care for her. So Alex took Janet on tour with him. He soon included her in his act. She played in major theaters, including Gaiety and Leith. During the war, Alex was stationed at the RAF in Blackpool. He became the head of entertainment for Northern England. He toured with an RAF show called Contact. Janet toured with her father through most of the war. The first time that she walked on stage, her father joked to the audience, "Oh, the size of it." The line got a big laugh. It quickly became his catchphrase. Janet performed in sketches. She became good at singing, dancing, and clowning. She sang, "I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire." She assisted her father in a comic magic act. She appeared in numerous wartime pantomimes. During this period, Alex found the time to host a BBC radio series called The Size of It. Interviewers always presumed that growing up in the theater was fun and exciting, but Janet was always quick to correct them on this. She said, "At 15, how much I knew about everything, including the seamy side. I'd taught myself to be hard, tough. I'd had to imagine an 8-year-old being so precocious that she'd go up to the stage manager of a theater and ask, 'How many minutes have I got on stage?'" Janet said that she was an old head on young shoulders. From her early years, she never really knew what it was to have a home, a stable background. She especially hated that she often had to change schools so that her father could tour from town to town. Phyllis died in June 1943 at the age of 29. This understandably upset Janet. Alex became increasingly concerned about his daughter. When she turned 10 years old, he decided that she needed a safe and stable home life. So he sent her to live in a quiet country village in North Yorkshire with an aunt and uncle. Janet was in her early teens when her father remarried. She didn't get along with her stepmother, Lilius, who wanted to send her to boarding school. She went out of her way to misbehave at boarding school to get expelled. The headmistress said, "It's as if the school's reputation is a crystal ball that this girl has taken in both hands and shattered into a million pieces." At the age of 15, Janet dropped out of school. This was 1949. At first, she got a job in a shoe shop. Janet said, "I thought my stepmother was trying to get me out of the way, but in fact, she was desperately concerned about me." The two became close. Lilius encouraged her to pursue an acting career. She did everything she could to help Janet find work as an actress. Janet began her acting career in 1951 at Preston Repertory Theatre with the Reggie Salberg Players. She later worked with Oldham Rep at the Oldham Coliseum and the Hull Repertory Theatre Company in Kingston upon Hull. One evening, she said, "A J. Arthur Rank talent scout spotted me and asked me to come to London for a screen test. They didn't give her a script. They just wanted her to be herself and talk. They called it a personality test. I was lost without lines," she said. She was also uncomfortable because the hairstylist gave her, in her words, Shirley Temple curls. She said, I was tickled pink and I walked on cloud nine until I heard the results of my test. Too individual was the executive's comment. They also told me I didn't have the proper Kensington accent, which everyone prefers in English films. Janet spoke at length about her life at this point.
I stayed on in London, alone, living out of a tiny fourth-floor furnished room, and I got a job as a hat check girl in the Kismet Club, which is famous for shish kebab and spicy curries and rose petal desserts. Every evening the management burned incense in the dining rooms for atmosphere. I wasn't on salary, just on tips, but I managed to eke out a living to meet expenses. The only trouble with the club was that the men customers liked to pinch the bottoms of the waitresses and the hat check girl, and consequently, I suffered from constant black and blue marks.
This is where she met film actor Tony Wright. She said, I admit I was wrong to get married, but Tony meant security, a home, even much a seemingly petty thing as a chance to unpack my clothes. By then, those things meant a great deal to me. She continued.
One evening, Tony Wright walked in, looking for all the world like a Greek god with his manly physique. We flirted a little, and a couple of nights later he asked me out for coffee at midnight when the club closed. We dated. We liked each other, but there was nothing serious between us. I was lonesome, and it was nice to have an escort, and Tony liked the way I didn't fawn over him in public. There was a nice, warm feeling between us, and we respected each other as individuals. After a month of dating, I was offered a role in a touring play, and I decided to take it since the money was better than the meager Kismet Club hat check tips. On the road, I played nothing but one-night stands. I tell you this because I think it explains my craving for a home of my own. One morning, I received a long letter from Tony with a marriage proposal. I was shocked. My first reaction was, he's being cute. How can the two of us marry when we've only seen each other a dozen times? So I wrote back and said, I couldn't consider marriage until we knew each other better. Tony was disappointed. He hated to see me leave London, and I admitted that I'd miss our dates. They had become a habit. Tony wouldn't take my no for an answer. He wrote and wrote, bombarding me with cards and letters, all of them asking me to marry him. He telephoned me constantly, and he showered me with beautiful bouquets of flowers, boxes of chocolate candy, and bottles of fine French perfumes and colognes. This had never happened to me before. A man had never paid so much attention to me. Possibly it was because I was so overwhelmed that I wrote back, a few months later, and agreed to our marriage. I was tired, exhausted from touring the provinces. Mother had died when I was 7, and all I could think of was the comfort and security a home would give me. I was 22 years old, a vagabond. All of my life had been a mad chase to a new town where I'd perform, spend the night in a small hotel, awaken, only to be on the move again. I yearned for roots, the strong binding roots of love and marriage and family. Dad had married and divorced twice since Mother's death, so I had little home life with him. I wonder now if I wasn't selfish to expect so much from marriage. Maybe my expectations were too much. But I wrote to Tony and accepted his proposal of marriage that drizzly gray September day. All I could see in my mind's eye was a cozy flat of our own, with gay chintz curtains, comfy maple furniture, a roomy kitchen where I'd fix all our meals. I dreamed of having happy children with rosy pink cheeks and tousled hair who'd smile and call us Mummy and Daddy, who would grow up and make us proud in our old age. Fool that I was, I simply took it for granted that such were the rewards of all marriages. Later I learned and suffered the bitter truths of reality. If only I had stopped to think about it all as it was happening. Wouldn't I have suspected something was wrong? There were danger ahead clues even before we wed. Tony wouldn't let me make any of the wedding arrangements. Maybe because I was so awed that I was marrying a film star, I held back my suggestions. He was adamant about choosing my wedding dress, a fitted bodice with a trailing skirt of pale lemon and white organza. He insisted that we be married in the church registry office, but I finally broke down and cried. I'd always dreamed of a church wedding with organ music and a mass. Tony wanted a man I'd never met, Earl St. John, an executive producer with Tony's film company, to give me away. This gave me the chills. I had a feeling Tony was ashamed of my dad because he was a vaudevillian. Everything's got to be done properly for the press, Tony kept saying. However, after much pleading and begging from me, Tony compromised about the church. He agreed the marriage could take place in a small chapel near a friend's country estate.
Janet and Tony married on January 5th, 1957. Janet said, "The day of the wedding, I had to pose, at Tony's request, a number of times in my wedding gown, in and out of the church, for newspaper photographs. Since the late afternoon sunlight wasn't strong enough for TV cameramen, Tony arranged for us to have a mock wedding at noon in addition to our actual wedding later in the day. All through that morning and afternoon, before Tony and I took our vows of holy matrimony, I had the eerie sensation that our marriage was an important business matter to Tony, and nothing else."
Berkshire. Arriving at St Mary's Church, Hampstead Norris, that popular British film star Tony Wright shared an anxious moment with his best man over the whereabouts of the ring. But all's well, and together they enter the 16th century church. The bride was lovely 21-year-old actress Janet Munro, a radiant figure in a dress of yellow organdy. She was given away by film chief Earl St John. Leaving for the reception, the happy pair were met by an avalanche of confetti and fans. The good wishes of us all follow them to Paris, where the honeymoon is being spent.
Janet continued, "When I awoke the morning of my wedding in the spacious and elegantly appointed country home, I realized I was all alone in a world of strangers. We'd arrived the night before, and I was ushered to my corner bedroom with its canopied bed and flowered wallpaper by a stiff, imperious butler. I couldn't help thinking this was a showplace, that the farm was not a lived-in farm. It served merely as a stage setting. Janet was upset that Tony made her stop working. She wrote, "I get so desperately lonely when I'm not working. 2 hours alone in the flat and I'm ready to crawl up the wall. I know I must try to be self-reliant. But how?" Janet strongly identified with the role that she played in a 1958 television play called Lace on Her Petticoat. Janet said, "The story was about a lonely little girl who wants a best friend and lace petticoat more than anything else. She got them, but life being what it is, she was still lonely. I thought I knew just how that little girl felt as I was playing her part. I can't stand loneliness myself. It's my biggest failing. If I'm alone in an apartment or a hotel room, I begin to bite my fingernails and wonder what to do. I can't stand my own company. I must have people around me, lots of them." Janet went on,
Although it breaks my heart to admit it, I felt like a bridal dummy in a shop window. A toy. A showpiece whose novelty wore off and was chucked in the junk pile. Tony and I have been separated by mutual consent for nearly 2 years. In England, it's not legal to divorce until after 3 years of marriage. I've never before talked about my marriage because I've been so confused by it. Now, living in America, I've had a chance to think about it in a proper perspective, and I want to share the truth of my marriage with you, hoping it might give you some insight into what a mess the wrong kind of marriage can be for two people who do like each other, but who mistake affection and a longing for security for good enough reasons to get married. Affection isn't enough. But Tony and I didn't know the meaning of love, of real passion. We were attracted to each other, yes. Tony was Britain's Mr. Beefcake, terribly good-looking, tall, muscular, with bright blue eyes. He was what's known in England as a restaurant stopper. As soon as he entered a dining room, everybody put down knives and forks and stared. He was that handsome.
Janet had told Tony before they married that she wanted a big family, but he suddenly lost interest in starting a family. Janet noted,
One afternoon, months after our marriage, I had a revelation. I took a stroll through our neighborhood, and I discovered that an old movie of Tony's was playing at a nearby cinema. I decided to see it. I sat there in the pitch-dark movie house, watching Tony perform on the screen, and suddenly I realized Tony's trouble. He was insecure because of his acting. He wasn't a very good actor, but he did have a magnificent physique and exciting looks. Like all Mr. Beefcakes, his time in the movies was coming to its end. He had passed his heyday. Looks fade so quickly, and I could see he wasn't as handsome now as he was in this earlier movie. nor was his body as supple. That day, it became shockingly clear to me that there was little talent to back up Tony's looks, and I felt deep compassion for him.
Janet separated from Tony a few months after their marriage. Her marriage to Tony boosted her professional status. She quickly found work in film and television. She was featured prominently in 2 films. The first film, Small Hotel, 1957, starred veteran comic actor Gordon Harker as a wily waiter.
Albert?
Yeah?
Did you really pinch the money for those lunches?
You mind your own business, my girl. You've got a lot to learn in this job, as I told you before.
I suppose the governor would have caught you.
Well, he does, often. He knows I work a fiddle now and then, and he does his best to make it difficult. He thinks up the rules to stop me, and I think up the ways to get around the rules.
Well, I'd have thought he'd have sacked you.
Sack me? Oh, no. He wouldn't sack me. But don't you try any games, young Effie. The governor respects me as an artist, but you're still an amateur. He'd sack you soon enough if he caught you up to anything. But me? Oh, no. Why, I'm much too valuable.
Is that a Wiener Schnitzel?
I don't think so, sir.
Then what is it?
Well, it's an escalope of... Wien? It's what it says there, sir.
Escalope of veal viennoise. In the appalling jargon of small hotels, that means to say Wiener Schnitzel.
Is it, sir?
No, it's not. A Wiener Schnitzel should be a golden bronze color, and this looks like a soiled dishcloth.
Yeah, it does look a bit pale, sir.
Will you please take it away and ask the cook if she can prepare my order properly cooked? And tell her she ought to be ashamed of turning out an anemic monstrosity like that.
Tell the cook, sir. Very good, sir.
The second film, The Trollenberg Terror, 1958, was a monster flick about giant, one-eyed, tentacled creatures from outer space. The film was released in the U.S. as The Crawling Eye. The poster shows Janet's character caught in a monster's tentacles. Walt Disney saw her in a 1957 ITV television Playhouse episode called The Pickup Girl. She became nervous meeting with Disney for the first time. That was a terrible ordeal, she recalled. In the company of all his other executives, Mr. Disney scrutinized me so carefully before putting me under contract. Her first film for Disney was Darby O'Gill and the Little People, in which she played opposite a young actor named Sean Connery. Janet was 23 years old, but Disney stated in press releases that she was 17. Janet said,
It was a very thrilling moment for me since I'd always dreamed of coming to America. And now one dream, at least, was coming true. When I was told the news, I hurried to a public phone booth and called Tony at his studio. He was cold, uninterested. "I've bought a new carpet for the living room," was all he said. "What color?" I asked him. "Why does it matter to you? You know nothing about decorating," he answered. No, I'd never pretended to be a professional decorator, but I, like all women, take pride in the way my home looks. "Tony," I managed, my throat choked with tears, "I've never felt our apartment's been a home for us. It's more like a business. I've never felt it had the atmosphere of love a home should have." "There you go again," he cut in, "with your fairy tale dreams. You should know I can't live in just any kind of a place. I'm a star, a big star, and my apartment has to be furnished properly. It's got to be smart and elegant." Then and there I knew we had signed the death warrant to our marriage. I couldn't build my marriage on chic or elegance. I wanted to build it on love, and on the joy of sharing my life with a husband and children. "Tony," I said, "I think we ought to get a divorce. I just don't see how we can go on living with each other. Suit yourself, he told me very matter-of-factly. You can apply for it when the 3 years are up. I closed my eyes. They were stinging with hot tears. How could he dismiss our marriage so quickly, so heartlessly? Why had he wooed me with love letters and French perfumes and sweetheart roses? Was it all for him to have a stage-prop bride, a purchased wife to pose with him for the film magazines and newspapers? Whenever you want, he added, you can come and pick up the rest of your clothes. But everything else in the apartment is mine. I've paid for it. I gulped and hung up the telephone. My hands were sweaty and clammy. I put them up to my face and sobbed in the stuffy phone booth. People looked at me, but I couldn't help myself. I'd made a mess of my personal life. What could I do to save my self-respect? Wiping my tears, I walked to a tea room for a cup of hot tea, and I told myself it was never too late to grow up. I thanked my lucky stars I was coming to America. America would help me forget. And maybe in time, it could help me build a new life for myself.
Darby O'Gill and the Little People, a captivating fantasy adventure about a tribe of mischievous and magical leprechauns, was a highly profitable film for Disney. Munro won the 1960 Golden Globe for New Star of the Year for her performance in the film. Janet was borrowed from Disney to star opposite rock and roll star Tommy Steele in Tommy the Toreador, 1959. The plot involves a British seaman who becomes stranded in Spain and is enlisted to impersonate a famous bullfighter who is locked up in jail.
Presents from your fans?
Ah, well, no, I'll tell you what this is, you see. It's, this happened to be another line of business.
It wasn't made here, it's American. Smuggled?
Introduced discreetly. I gotta live, haven't I?
Why?
Just say you love me and Amanda, you won't be sorry. You heard my serenade, Amanda mine, Amanda mine, Amanda mine.
You'll be halfway home this time tomorrow.
I suppose I should be happy, but... Oh, I don't know. Back to twice nightly and theatrical digs and stage doors down back alleys.
Is there any chance of me seeing you again when I get back to England?
Of course. Listen. Oh, isn't it sad?
Yeah.
Sounds as if he was saying goodbye. Tommy, I've tried to think everything's going to be all right tomorrow, and I can't. Please don't go through with it. I mean, you might get hurt or killed.
Well, I can't very well let them down on the last night, can I? Besides, everything's going to be all right.
I know why you're doing it. It's the nicest thing anyone's ever done. I can't let you risk your life for me, however brave you are.
Look, I might as well tell you now, because you're going to find out anyway. I'm very frightened and I'm not a bit brave.
You're not?
No, I'm terrified of bulls and the fight's been fixed.
How?
It's a tame bull. And I'm a fake.
Tell me how marvelous.
You mean you don't mind?
Of course not. I don't know why they don't always do it like that and then no one would ever get hurt.
I mean, you don't mind me not being like Perilla?
I think you're just fine the way you are.
Before she returned to Disney, she also starred in a melodrama about teen love called The Young and the Guilty, 1959. Janet's second film for Disney was Third Man on the Mountain, 1959.
You lost what little mind you had? Yes! I mean, no. Now, wait till you hear. Tomorrow, I go to the window.
Rudy!
You Mr. Hitty's head as porter to the great Captain Winter.
Yes, it is, eh?
I told you they couldn't stop him. He's running away again.
Not this time. My mother and uncle have given me their permission. I've talked to Tony Fassler, and he's going to do the dishes for me.
So they finally give him in. He's going to be a guide after all.
Well, just for tomorrow. And only because of Captain Winter. But it'd be worth it if it was the last day of my life.
May very well be. Now, you calm down. Remember, you've never climbed with a party before.
Who was it used to go to the practice mountain with us?
Some grumpy old man. I can just hear him. 1 foot slowly, then the other. Up we go.
Stay off my cupboard.
Feel for your hold.
Three-legged cow could do better than you.
All right, break your necks.
Lean back. Stop hugging the rock.
Mistress, where are you?
What goes on here?
We just fell off the Wunderhold.
I mean that... You mean my son is on the Citadel. You've lied to me. You've all lied to me.
Frau Matt.
Well, Lisbeth, I hope you're satisfied.
Yes. Rudy's doing what he was meant to do.
What right have you to say what he was meant to do? How could you know? You've never been a wife, a mother. You've never lost a man.
But don't you see, we both nearly lost a man.
Why couldn't you have left him alone?
But it was Rudy himself. It wasn't me. Nor was it old Theo. That's what makes it so right. So wonderful.
Would you want to be the wife of a guide?
Yes. Or a dishwasher. Or a hotel proprietor. But never the wife of a hotel proprietor who wanted to climb mountains. Because a man must do what he feels he must do, or he isn't a man. And no one, wife, mother, or sweetheart, has the right to make him into something he wasn't meant to be. I'm sorry you didn't know. I'm sorry they lied to you.
There's nothing to do now, is there? He'll never be anything but a guide.
No, Frau Matt.
Janet got much attention for her third Disney film, Swiss Family Robinson, 1960. The director of Swiss Family Robinson, Ken Anakin, enjoyed working with the actress. He wrote in his autobiography, "So You Want to Be a Director." I arrived early one morning and was telling Walt about an evening we'd spent with Janet Munro, who had kept us in fits of laughter as she told us stories about her father, a famous Scottish comedian. At one time, he ran out of gags and only saved his act by bringing Janet on as a 6-year-old straight man dressed in a sailor suit.
There we are.
What are you doing?
He was just showing me how it would work. I feel sorry for any pirates who come creeping round here.
Well, it was my idea, don't forget. If you like, I'll show you what else I had in mind.
I don't see how anybody can shoot a thing like this. Fritz, why don't you teach me how to shoot? Might be important if there's a battle.
All right, come on. Well, first, you pull the gun tight into your shoulder, like this. And, well, here. Tight into your shoulder. And, well, right hand near the trigger. No, here. Left hand out to support it. A little more. Right. Now. No, you have to use this hand to support it. Now you sight along the barrel here. Hope you don't mind.
Why do you think I wanted you to teach me?
Roberta! Where are you?
I'm over here.
Barnard wrote, Munro became, at age 23, the first actress ever signed to a long-term contract with Disney. the Hollywood establishment quickly crowned her Disney's brightest young star, and the public adored her vibrant portrayals of plucky, winsome ingenues. Wright was granted a divorce from Janet on May 12, 1960. At the time, Janet took a break from acting. Janet returned to acting for her fourth Disney film, Horsemasters, 1961. Janet left Disney before fulfilling her contract. After appearing in 4 films for Disney, she decided she had had enough of the girly parts. She said, "I realized that I couldn't go on pretending to be a fresh teenage girl." After leaving Disney, Munro tried to radically change her wholesome screen image. She said, "It wasn't at all easy getting rid of my sweet girly image." She had a pretty tough time convincing producer Sir Michael Balcon that she was right for the day the Earth caught fire.
Well, it just shows you what the sun brings out. Quite a day to jump in the pool, isn't it? Made any good connections lately?
Please, this is my day off.
Come the revolution and we'll all have Sunday off. I have to be in the office 2 hours ago.
I hate to think of them trying to print that great big paper without you.
Tell me something, Miss,
Miss will do.
Are you anti-press or just anti-me?
On the contrary, I wish you the best of luck on your prowl. You'll find the bikini section of the forest near the river. Why don't you go howl over there?
Oh, come on now, what did I do?
What?
All right, I know, I shouted at you on the phone. But that was 4 weeks ago. Does it have to be a blood feud? Besides, I was under stress and sober at the time.
You know, it's my first day on that board. I did some terrible things. I connected Mr. Holroyd with his wife, and he thought he was talking to Miss... Oh, dear. I shouldn't have told you that.
Why not? It's made my day.
No, a switchboard is very confidential, and an air ministry one is even more very.
How very is your phone number?
It's a bad line. You get nothing but crackle.
I love crackle.
You're sitting on my skirt.
Oh, sorry. Look, there's a lunch place down there by the boating pool. We could get fish and chips and pretend we're in Venice.
Sundays I don't eat lunch.
Okay, Miss Earl.
And that's not feuding. It's dieting.
Dinner?
No, tonight's hair wash night.
Well, that lets out breakfast, because I can't stand those pins. If you turn over quick, you can lose an eye.
Hello?
Guess who? Clever girl. Were you asleep?
No, I was just washing my hair. Did you make it all right?
I certainly did. I'm back downstairs. Well, it's a 2-hour story. You're listening to the radio? Did you hear that bulletin? So? You pro-police or anti-police?
Yes, I'm still with you. I was just trying to work out all the permutations.
There's only 2 of them. You can send me out into the cold, cold snow and let me get lost with the rest of the kids, or you can utter 2 one-syllable words and become a law-abiding citizen.
Can you be one, too? Well, since this thing seems to be bigger than both of us. Beginning to think you arranged this.
But of course. You look cute, sort of boyish.
Fine. Well, just remember you're normal.
Yes. Well, this is all very sweet and spontaneous. I don't mind sleeping on the couch.
I haven't got a couch.
Oh, in that case, I'll just cuddle up on the floor at the bottom of your bed like a faithful St. Bernard.
Oh, no, you won't.
Can't we just have a flaming fog flare between us?
Won't be necessary. If you're staying, you're sleeping in here.
I've got a feeling you've been through all this before.
I have not.
You mean I'm the first man you've managed to trap up here for the night?
Perfectly comfortable with a pillow and a couple of sheets. Excuse me.
Well, supposing you want to use the bathroom in the night.
We'll deal with each problem as we get to it.
I have a big problem, Jeannie. As well as being normal, I'm human.
You're also a pushover, Pete.
Meaning you're not interested?
Maybe I could be. But don't make it so easy. It'd be hard to get. Make me fight for you.
It's an unfair contest.
Who knows? You might even be lovable. But don't rush me. I'm allergic to one-night stands. Now, if you'll give me 5 minutes, I'll finish my hair.
Normally, I'd offer to help, but in the
In
circumstances...
the circumstances, you can take a well-earned nightcap. There should be a bottle of something in the kitchen. I forgot. St. Bernards carry their own.
You'll get a glass in there, too.
Maybe I will. Maybe I won't.
Did you find it?
Yes, I found it. Look, if I've got to play hard to get for you to go steady with me, how about a few immigration details?
Such as?
Oh, where you slept for the last 7 years. Have you ever suffered from marriage, divorce, or any similar virus?
Only 2 near infections. Any other inquiries?
No, the rest seems to be all right. Maybe I will.
1 or 2 pillows.
Oh, I just wedged my head between the taps.
I'd offer you a pair of my pajamas, but it's a bit hot, isn't it?
Yeah. You wouldn't like to come into my place for a drink?
It's against the house rules.
Yeah, you like to get sober.
I like you sober.
Good night, Jeannie.
Good night, Pete.
And thanks for the use of the bathroom.
You're welcome. Sleep well.
Janet got the best reviews of her career for her next film, Life for Ruth, 1962. The actress plays the wife of a devout Jehovah's Witness who refuses, based on religious conviction, to allow their injured young daughter to undergo a vital blood transfusion. When the daughter dies, the husband is ostracized by his community and brought to trial for murder.
Change your clothes. You'll be ill if you don't.
Pat, listen to me. We're doing right. Look at me. In God's law, there's no compromise. You have to go the whole way or not at all.
Ruth will be dead by morning.
We don't know that.
She's only 8. She's hardly lived.
Don't. Please don't.
I can't help it.
If you tried to sleep now.
Sleep? You ought to be in bed. You're shivering. I'll come up soon.
Pat, I promise you, Ruth's going to be all right.
Marriage was still on Janet's mind. She said, "I still want a good marriage so very much. I would try so hard to make it work, and I think I could make it work. And I want children too. But I can't help being afraid that I might get into another unhappy marriage just because I think about things so much." She was determined to be a devoted full-time mother. She said, "If I have children, I'll make sure they don't lead the kind of life that I led in my childhood." But she wasn't entirely confident about her prospects. She said, "If I come through in the end, it will be by a narrow fluke. I don't know if I will." Janet found herself attracted to actor Ian Hendry while working with Hendry on a television drama called Afternoon of a Nymph. Janet began to date Hendry in October 1961. Janet said that Ian was more reserved than the typical actor. She said that he was very nice, very quiet. For their first date, they shared drinks at a pub. Janet remembered telling Hendry that she would love to have a home on a river. He liked the idea. The two became inseparable. Janet said, "Before I met Ian, I seemed to be just drifting along with no place to go. Even though I had several men friends and a beautiful flat and my career was booming, life had become empty." During this period, Janet made 2 films. The first film was a charming but low-energy spy thriller, Hide and Seek, 1964.